Hi, it's Nina Boal here again from Cyberlight. Thank you for joining us for the third in the series of our webinar series. Today, we're going to look at how we can talk about empowering children to thrive in the digital world. This is in context of educators and parents who would like to have a deeper conversation about how 7 to 17-year-olds can navigate their online space. To give you some context, Cyberlight has created the Internet Independent Learning Library. We have done this to ensure that educators have a resource while they're in school to pull out as lesson plans, presentations, and scenarios that you can deep dive into these topics with children in the classroom. So we're not just touching on the basic points or definitions within this program, we're really making kids use their critical thinking skills, dive into their own cyberspaces and work out how they can apply a lot of this information. Internet Independent comes with videos, articles, assessment tools, the works, so feel free to come in touch with us and to talk about that more. We base all our curriculum and all our products on this framework. This is a framework that we've worked very hard and with our experience speaking to children globally about what they need to be independent and joyful online. We have created a look at these 6 components where we believe children should learn critical thinking skills to deep dive into them. And today we're going to talk fundamentally about one area. This is digital identity, the identity of our children online. Now, if you're my age, you may be in the habit of talking about the digital age, time before we were online and time after we were online. But our children have no concept of an offline world where we didn't need to think of our identities as 2 separate scenarios. We didn't need to consider that our identities and our youth could be well documented and permanently kept forever. So this is something that we really need to talk about, especially in a world that is coming out of the digital age and into the AI age. So that's where we want to go today. And with all my talks and with every scenario we look at, we come back to this cyber bedroom context of how do we discuss this in context of what our children's online world actually look like. Remember, when we talk about the digital world, it's often easy to fall into our own bias of what a digital world looks like or feels like based on our scenarios and what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. When we start a conversation with a child and their digital identity, we need to first get them to map out if they understand the concept of their digital identity and how we look at it and how it would visually look if it was a real world scenario. So back to the cyber bedroom, which I think is a great analogy of children identifying what that looks like. We love to decorate our bedrooms. It is an expression of who we are and what we would like to be perceived as. You know, some people fall into wanting a graffitied black bedroom, another person may want a pink fairy bedroom, and there's a reason for it. The same is very true of our digital worlds as well, how we present our images and ourselves. So the first thing I would get our children to do when we're doing any program in this space of discovering our digital identity and learning to curate it carefully is to first map out what our digital world looks like. One of the exercises I would highly recommend, especially for the older children who are on more apps and are really building out their risk platform because they're in more and more spaces, is to first establish where they are when they're online. So get them to write in 3 categories: the apps they use the most, the apps they use occasionally, and the apps you use only sometimes. What you'll find then is you can have a clear understanding of where they are and who they are online. Some children may spend more of their times creating their identities in gaming platforms. Others may spend more time on YouTube or influencer channels, etc. So we know where to be having the conversation with the children. Once you've put them into categories, they can map out what their cyber bedrooms look like and where they spend most of the time and how they use their digital space. So they have to also understand it's not always just for entertainment, it's functionality as well, and how the digital space works in terms of functionality. And I'll get into that in a bit more as we go through this presentation. So first of all, I'd like to discuss digital identity in the form of motivation and our digital definitions that we should be using in this space and speaking to our children about. The first thing they need to understand is what their digital footprint means, how we define a digital footprint to each age range, and what they can do about their digital footprint. The easiest way to explain this is that when they're online, they're leaving a trace or a marker or information behind. All this becomes a catalogue of information that technology, spammers, phishers, fakers, all the people we end up talking about can look at and form an opinion about you. So when you're online and you're putting things online, you're creating this footprint, and we need to be aware of who we are leaving the footprint for. Older children, why we have this conversation, is often the digital footprint is then used by technology companies to create a digital identity for them, giving them information they would like, understanding their age and thinking, well, you're going to really enjoy this type of content on TikTok, and really forcing them down an echo chamber. And their digital identity sometimes get manipulated or led by other people. It's a very nuanced conversation you can have with older children. The other is online responsibility. When we're looking at our digital identity, it's often good to talk about our digital space as online communities and what's our responsibility to make sure our identities are played out as we would want our personalities to play out in the real world. For example, if you leave a comment that is negative on someone else's comment, that is an online responsibility, because that scenario could upset that person, could get other people to onboard and also comment, and could create a space where you'll have a lot of toxic negativity. Your digital identity and your experience has made that happen. So we need to understand that. Again, we should talk to our children when we're talking about who they are and what they represent online, about what they choose to share, what they choose to give out there, and what they choose to allow other people to share about them as well. We need for them to understand that we need boundaries online as we would in the real world. While we don't want to be seen by neighbors, aunties, uncles to be doing crazy stuff outside in the community where it could be captured by someone on CCTV or just walking around, we need them to have the ability to understand the same is true online. If we are going to put things online, we should always ask for consent for someone else, because you are publishing their identity and putting them out there. Or somebody should ask the same of you, and you should get into a very, very formulated or frameworked approach of knowing that anything online then is part of who you are, and you need to consider that and how you set your boundaries moving forward. How do we protect our children's identity? I have given a lot of information about how big tech can sometimes force our children into an echo chamber, get them to work in certain ways, form bad habits like scrolling, doom scrolling, using filters, trying to look like someone they're not. It feels a bit like everyone else is in control out there and we are not as in control. So it's something that we really have to help our children navigate. I'm going to go back to our bedrooms and realize that, you know, we can choose who we let in there and what types of behaviors are allowed in there by using some of the tools that are available to us. So one of them is settings. Each app has settings. Who can decide how much information is going out there? Are we on public or are we on private profile? Who has access to the information that we're putting out there? And getting children to understand why we want to protect their digital identity. What is the outcome or the escalation that can happen if we're sharing too much about ourselves out there? And this also builds into a lot of our other modules, but it would be about identity theft. A lot of our children are finding when they do start to get on social media and they haven't understood privacy, that people have taken their information and created accounts that look like them. Phishing scams are growing in the space of children. They are being subjected to more scams than adults these days. And they are getting this by people really social engineering and creating scams, particularly for your child. So they need to be aware of that as well. One of the conversations when we're talking to children about their identities online is going back to that conversation about our actions and our choices have a lot to do with what we're giving out there and what we're allowing other people to know about us. So going back to the apps and the functionality apps that I was talking about earlier, one of the things that we choose to give to a lot of apps is our location. We all do this. Every time we download an app, it will ask us a few questions, and we passively, probably don't even read it, press yes, 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 without really considering the motivation behind the question and what we're actually giving away. We need to have much more critical thinking around this issue. So, for example, location. Ask the kids, okay, if you use Uber or Grab or you're using Gojek, they ask your location. Should you give that location? Well, yes, because you won't get picked up if they don't know your location. Same with food delivery apps. If you want your food, they need to know where you are. But does Roblox, Minecraft, Instagram need to know where you are? What's the motivation behind that? And why are they asking for that information? And are you giving it away for your own sake or their sake? So you get to choose, and you get to choice of your actions of who you're giving this information to. The same with communication. What you're putting out there is being recorded, picked up as data, and then it is being used to manipulate maybe your AI feed, or for phishers, scammers, theft to happen. What we communicate and how we communicate online is an integral part of who we are. Children today do not normally talk about my online self and my offline self. They see themselves as a fully formed self with both components working together. So communication online is a huge extension of who they are. And so they have to think about the language they use, the nuanced, are they upsetting people? The digital identity of aggression is a whole nother topic, but it can be picked up. And when we're introducing this topic to the younger children, and understand that we need to be kind online, we need to really work things out. Where we often really don't have a conversation with our children and we just assume something is established for them is in settings. What we find in today's apps, they're all set to adult mode, and it's up to a parent or a child to go into those settings and change them to child mode. It's integral when you go into a new house or you go into a new situation that you know the safety of the front door. The same is with the settings. All children should be able to navigate that when they download an app, that they go to the settings, set themselves to private mode, they understand what access they're given of their phone, and that they put themselves into a place where they are safe. Really integral conversation to be having with children, starting young and moving up, that you navigate and have independence online, and you can take control back. Something we really need to enforce with this new generation when we have the AI technology coming in, which I will come on to in a minute. One of the things that I will say time and time again, the beginning and the end of our digital identity is how secure we are. We need to also talk about cybersecurity and not just cyber safety sometimes. For example, talking about passwords, how I talk to children is that their passwords need to be incredibly long and strong. Children need to understand that once somebody gets your password, they get into your world. Now, I find younger kids understand this if I'm talking about Minecraft, and what if your whole Minecraft world suddenly deleted on you? Older kids, what if somebody could come in and take all those photos and capture what you've given the digital world, and then could do something with that? How would that make you feel? The first line defense is having long and strong passwords, and we are messy hygienically with this. It should be like brushing our teeth, creating passwords. You need to change your toothbrush often. You also need to change your passwords often. In the digital age, there are two lines that a cyber criminal can get to the password. One is the child tells their friends, which happens very often, tells people around them, leaves a note on the floor. It becomes something that can be navigated. The other way is they can just hack Minecraft, they can hack Facebook, and then your password leaks another way. The only way to overcome that is consistently changing passwords, having unique passwords, and knowing how to build long, strong passwords that aren't a pattern. There's lots of ways to do this, and this is something that you can get lessons plans from to work out how you really push this home. It's very, very important. We're all really bad at it, and we all know that we could be doing better. The other conversation on critical thinking skills with our digital identity is be able to put things into buckets, especially as we get older. I have a LinkedIn profile that I rely on heavily. If you type in my name, I have a digital footprint, which enforces the fact that I am a cyber expert and has been curated and looked after to ensure that it doesn't damage me in any way. As kids get older and they're applying for universities and colleges, their public profile is something that is expected so that views can see a positive image online. So from a very young age, we need to navigate what consolidates private information and what consolidates public information. And can we define those two things as incredibly separate? Have exercises where they have to put things into boxes. Private information, of course, gets very confusing when we start talking about addresses. We talk about date of birth. When at school, when we're filling in forms, we often have to give that information away. So we need to get children to actually go through the nuance again of actually when is it right for me to move forward and be able to do this and give the information. And when should I really be holding tight and considering, why is this person asking for my national ID? Why is somebody asking for my credit card or my parents' information? And what should I do about it? Because it does get incredibly complicated when most of our lives and our banking ends up online in the end anyway. So from really early on, we need to have those conversations, being aware that phishing and crime is really targeted at our children, that they should be able to navigate these conversations. And lastly, online image. As our children grow older, our online image becomes, as I said, something that actually can support us. It can be incredibly positive. We have found through social media, TikTok and other tools, children have found themselves. They found a voice, they found a safe space in a community that they can be guided in. We're in a really naive space if we believe that at a certain age, an online image is not occurring. Then the conversation has to be notched up a level of, what are you projecting? What are you giving out there? Our online image matters. We found a lot of older kids are really worried about inappropriate pictures, nudes that may be out there already. And this is something we need to be having a conversation with really early on and talking to children and saying, when you send a photo or video out into the wall, it's a tool that you've used to talk to somebody, interact with somebody, but then it can turn back and be a weapon. And it can be a weapon that could hurt you in the end. So when you're creating your online image, you need to think, what is a tool and what can be weaponized later? It's a difficult way to think, but as our kids go into university and we're talking to those older children, that skill needs to be there of thinking, how am I putting up a blog about something that will show that I want to be a vet one day? Extremely good, please let me into your program. Or I'm putting something out there that's showing that I'm quite lazy and I'm going out all the time and I really can't be bothered. We need to have these conversations because every workforce, every future partner is Googling you before they meet you. So we need to be aware of what that looks like when that happens. Thank you for coming to the end of this presentation. There will be one more webinar after this. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any questions, you can contact us at cyberlightbooks.com and feel free to reach out for us if we can help you or support your educational program within your schools. Thank you very much.